Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Hillary Fredrickson, and I'm here with Gemini Brett, an Earth astrologer who also happens to be my sibling, my only brother, and he's my most beloved person. He and I have done everything together. I'm older than him, so he's known me every day of his life. And we're lucky to have this special bond. And I always say that I'm a medicine woman of the earth, and he's a medicine man of the stars. He's a shamanic astrologer, and we're going to talk to him about the astrology of fertility or just what's going on. We'll see. We always end up doing interesting things. So if you have questions, if you're live watching us, you can put some questions in the chat as they come up. For Gemini Brett, he does individual readings, which are fabulous for people, and he's got a great community, so make sure you follow him. But hey, Brett.
Hi, how you doing, Al?
Yay, I'm so happy to see you. We live 40 minutes away, but we don't get to see each other every day. Like at one point, my brother moved in with me when I was going through a really hard time in my life, and
like 3 points.
Three different but recently he lived with me right when I moved back here from Japan with my family and my 3 kids, and when I was going through a divorce, and it was so fun to live with my brother again. Like it was just so fun. He'd be in his bathrobe making coffee, and me too. It was like
early, that window, that sliding glass door right there looks due east, and so you can really do morning star stuff before sunrise there. And then where I live in Richmond, we have west, so which is fun too. Hillary's born by daytime, shortly after sunrise, and I'm born at night, shortly after sunset. So kind of appropriate in that way. And actually, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure I told you, but your house is exactly west of mine. So we're aligned by cardinal directions. So let's talk about fertility, right? That's what happens here at Doctors in Demand? Is this like specifically a cultivate fertility space, or do you go into many realms?
It's many realms, but right now, Kara and I are hosting a Love Yourself Fertile Summit with Lauren Hanna, our friend, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of women viewing us all week, really interested in working on their fertility. Many women who have been through miscarriages or doing IVF. Some women are just getting started, but I wanted to bring in your perspectives of fertility and astrology, or just other information outside of like all the stuff we're covering in the summit.
Am I the token dude?
No. We have a dude acupuncturist. His name is Mark Sklar. He always comes on and educates our community brilliantly. But
go ahead, Mark. I bet you Mark's like me. Like oftentimes I'm the only guy in like a circle of awesome, powerful women learning about life and evolution and the like. I actually wanted to share this, probably something you've tuned into, but called the Blood Gates. And this was my dear friend Maria Stark brought me when I was living in Seattle at one time to a really wonderful kind of like womb focus happening. And, they were like, Brett, you can like think about someone else's womb, or like, like, I was like, I have a womb too. Anyway, it's like, so the blood gates, generally speaking, which are so much more evident in the female biology, are birth, right? So, and then menses, childbirth, menopause, and death, right? But so, I mean, I've said for a long time, like we men, first of all, it's nice to be around empowered women who are like taking back like their blood cycle, right, as their friend, not as some curse or whatever is taught by, modern patriarchal weirdness. And then like for us to learn ours too, because we have monthly cycles, right? Like I dance to the moon, and I have less of like a biological kind of feedback or, notices, right? So like learning from really powerful women in my life has been really important for me to cultivate my own fertility. And so I want to speak today about working with the moon. And it's really working with the earth, sun, and moon, to like tune into your own, to like our global kind of fertility cycles, but also to our personal fertility cycles, if that sounds good.
That sounds good. That sounds great.
I want to say, just as a testament to Dr. Hillary and Dr. Kara's work, we have a baby coming in June, after a couple miscarriages here and some great challenges. And Hillary's been working with us and mostly with my amazing partner, Anna. And yeah, miracle of life and all that. So we're really excited and nervous and all the things. But I would suggest a couple of things. One, if you are trying to bring in life, it's probably really good for you to be intentionally practicing creativity. And this is something, if you want to do this with your moon, like that happens monthly, right? Okay, so I mean, obviously, if you're trying to bring in human life, like you're going to be working with your moon cycle, but I mean your menses cycle, right? Because we know there's a time you'll ovulate, and it's been interesting to watch temperature taking around here, and you know, all the tracking of really knowing when like ovulation's happening and that, right? There interestingly is, you know, just a general teaching by watching the moon grow and shrink every month, right? And this is something that so many humans in modern culture like won't actually really experience. It's I think, you know, part of what I'm here to do is help heal a condition that I call starvation. um, you know, there's many reasons, obviously nutrition, etc., that are making it more and more difficult to bring in life these days. I mean, the plastics in our clothes and the hormones in our everythings and on and on. I can go much more conspiratorial than that if you'd like. But I would say part of this is like we're very disconnected from the stars. And I don't mean like even being out there and being able to name Arcturus and Sirius and all the nerd things that I do. I mean, just like literally, like when I walk the dog at night, there's no evidence for me whether the moon is new or full until I get down the hill and around the corner and get into this park, which is like the only little zone in my neighborhood with no streetlights.
Wow. And so from you walk out of your house where there's a lot of streetlights
Yeah.
and
And
you
it's
can't.
just the same.
Fascinating. Because
Right.
I live more in darkness. So I walk out of my house and it's dark, and we have really good stars in my town. I think in
Yeah,
general.
you do. It's amazing. You know, I mean, like, so I've been privileged to move around the earth a bunch and see some cool places. Spend a lot of time in Sedona, like Sedona, where I'll bring people for retreats sometimes because it's such a beautiful, energetic place, but also like dark sky place, right? Good stars. Like if you go down there at full moon, in some ways, it's kind of a bummer because when the moon is full, her light will just kind of eat the sky and you can't see the Milky Way and things like that, which most nights, well, other nights like new moon nights, you certainly do see in Sedona. But then the cool thing is like you can go hiking in the middle of the night and you don't need flashlight. Like you get the big flashlight, you know what I mean? And like you don't have to worry about snakes or whatever. Like you can just fully see, but you're seeing in like silver light. And this is like meant to be part of our natural experience, right? Because it's not for most people. We just have to set some intention to go see and participate, right? Like the moon is just as visible in the bright city lights of New York City as it is in the dark sky of Sedona, Arizona, you know, clouds allowing. But most of us don't like really see it or participate. And I don't think even needing to like understand the moon cycle intellectually, I mean, that can help, like if you really want to start tracking the moon. But generally speaking, just like for the whole earth, we have new moon time. Let's just show you a demonstration. Let's say you are the sun and my face is the earth. Every month the moon comes between earth and sun, and then 2 weeks later about back here and then around again. Right? And so when the moon is between us and the sun, there's a seed, there's something new, and we can't see the moon at all. because she's fully reflecting sunlight back towards the sun, and we're looking at a side of the moon that's always that's in shadow.
Just
Right.
so everybody knows, if you're listening, I've heard this 800 times from my brother, Gemini Brett. And it still trips me out and it still kind of confuses me. And I think I have it wrong. And like I said, so you can let that wash over you if it doesn't sink, and take the medicine from the concept rather than like the actual astronomy. It's funny how, like, for some reason, it's just hard for me to picture and understand, even though he makes it so clear. So don't trip up on that if you want to be dropping more into the spiritual content.
Well, and I appreciate that too. So let me just simplify it. Every month for like 3 days, we can't see the moon.
That I know.
Right. And so that's the dark moon or the new moon. Right. And importantly, like, it's new. And so generally speaking, this would be like red tent time. And I mean, I should clarify in case people aren't aware of that term. I'm not talking about like anatomy there. Right. So in some of the sweat practices, like native practices, right, at moon time, there's a special lodge that women can go to for sweat, for, prayer, for, and it's only for women. And it's at that time when, like, we kind of want to shut it down. I mean, ideally, we would literally kind of globally take 3 days of quiet and just shut it down and get off of our computers and really tune into like the seed for the month, like the intention that we want to have. And then the moon is born again. She like comes through her trial by fire, which happens every month when she goes into the light of the sun and we lose our sight of the moon, and then she's reborn. And for 2 weeks about, the moon grows, right? And then she's full. And that's moon fully reflecting sunlight back to us. The full moon rises at sunset. She's in the top of the sky in the middle of the night. She sets at sunrise, right? Like at that time, the moon in some ways is kind of like the sun's equal. And that's, it's like you could just look at that full moon. That's like the big egg, right? Like that's the big ovulation time. And in a sense, it's like the flowering of the seeds that were planted at new moon time. And then the moon will shrink for a couple weeks until she's new again. And it happens every month. Right.
And the fun thing about the full moon energy for women, if you're really kind of into it and your cycle is tracking with the moon cycle, which many women will do if they're living outside or they're exposing themselves to sun and moon, it will start to coordinate with moon cycle. And with that full moon energy is often, if we're peaking with our estrogen and we're ovulating and we're in full glory, like that's when we have the most energy. We feel the most extroverted. We feel excited. We're dancing. We're raising our chi. That's the opposite of what Brett's talking about, like going offline during the dark moon and having quiet time. But like, that's this whole cycle syncing and eating different foods for, it's all connected. So it's so fun to connect it to the stars out and the moon outside of just how you're feeling when your estrogen's peaking.
Yeah. No, I mean, it would be super nice if this like was a 28-day cycle.
Right.
And new moon time was on like Saturday and Sunday, and you could just shut it down because you're not clocking in at your 9 to 5. And then full moon time would be 2 weeks later on a Saturday, Sunday, and you go out and rage or something and dance, But the cycle's 29 and a half days. And so, new moon on a Monday, it's not going to happen on Monday the next month or whatever. And our calendars, well, the Gregorian calendar that most of us use is not aligned to the phases of the moon. So you can't really go there, unfortunately. And the other thing is, while new moon and full moon time, it's like, I would say like globally, this kind of like global red tent and global like egg. We were all born to a specific phase of the moon. It's like, Hillary, you're born a day and a half before full moon.
That makes a lot of sense.
Why does that make a lot of sense to you?
I thrive on full moon energy. It's that like intensity, like that's what I love. The party, the bigness, the jumping into the anticipation of the full energy. I love it.
Yeah, right on. And there's, so you're born with the moon growing. I was born with the moon shrinking. Which like fun. It's like you were born by daytime. You're literally born like shortly after sunrise, 8:24 a.m. Right? I'm born at nighttime, 7:39 p.m. in October. And so that's like literally like solar and lunar in the craft, especially in ancient astrological practice. And then the growing moon is more solar. It's like getting bigger, right? Where the shrinking moon is more lunar. So like that's another thing where you're like kind of in your personal code set to be a little bit more solar and me more lunar. So there's an ancient practice, and I've seen evidence work. Now I should say that like when Anna and I conceived recently, it wasn't aligned to either her natal, her birth moon phase, or to mine. Or there's ways where I can do like relationship charts and look at like a phase for the two of you who are trying to create life together, whatever it may be. So it's not like it's like this every time, but there is a theory and some decent statistical evidence that we are most fertile when the phase of the moon to which we were born comes around together every month. And some say 2 to 3 days before it. So you want to learn what the phase of the moon was when you were born. And any astrologer who's worth their salt could help you with that. There's also apps and such. And then you want to just learn to know when that time of the month comes around every month and try then. And we actually have some evidence of like, even if it's not where your personal moon cycle, like your blood cycle is at this time, it can be a time of really increased fertility. I have seen in my own practice over the years that when couples are calling in baby, a woman's cycle will often realign to her natal cycle. So we know when women live together, sometimes they bleed together, right? Depending on diet, your stress, your work, whatever, all of these things can shift and change. Yeah. But I will see sometimes like kind of a natural contraception, and I'm not like prescribing anything here, obviously, right? But like, is if you bleed opposite to your natal moon thing, you are less likely to become pregnant because now your like monthly ovulation according to your menstrual cycle is going to be opposite to this like astronomical fertility cycle. Right. And so I have literally seen clients that I've worked for long times when they're ready to call baby in, their cycle will start moving to align to their natal moon phase, which is a pretty amazing thing. And one thing I would recommend, there's two here, just generally speaking, is like learn the phases of the moon. You can get a moon phase calendar. I imagine most of you have one. And practice with it, participate with it. When the moon is full every month, go watch the full moon rise at sunset. Be with the moon at nighttime. When the moon is new, like shut it down and go learn your natal moon phase and learn how to track when that comes around, right? And you like working with an astrologer on that can be super helpful. And then I could just give you dates. And what I would really recommend is when you're in this kind of lunar ovulation time every month, make something, right? So for those of you who are calling in like creating life, practice creativity, right? So work with Dr. Hillary, work with Dr. Kara and all the things in your nutrition, your hormones and on, right? But also paint and dance and sing and write a song, like birth something every month, right? So like call in like the spirit of creativity and be in that practice regularly, right? And I mean, should baby not come, and I wish this for you, if this is what you're calling in, you have reclaimed your creative powers and made a bunch of awesome stuff. You know what I mean? And this is like, I think you create, therefore you are. This is one of the reasons we are here. It sounds like maybe there's some questions.
There's some questions, but I love this. Like, if you're watching live and you're in the chat, like, is this resonating? At least the creativity part. There's some comments that like, what if I don't ovulate and bleed right at the right time, syncing with the moon? That's okay. Like as Brett articulated, there's are sometimes different cycles. Some women bleed every 28 days. Some women bleed 32 days. Some women have variable cycles because there's a whole lot of other things influencing us in modern day. So you're not bad or wrong. Plus, like it's just general themes, but it's ways of being that he's also speaking of, and ritual, creating ritual and stepping into ritual, and having times of the month where you're resting and creating, and other times of the month where you're expanding and releasing. And does that resonate? That is something that I'd love to know for people listening.
Yeah, there's one piece I'd add to that as well. Like, love making, baby making should never feel like a job. And I think it can really fall into that place, right? So if you're honoring like your partner, it's if let's say like this monthly moon phase thing isn't aligned with your like ovulation cycle, and you're like, then what's the point, right? Like we can't make a baby now. Let's wait until the temperature is right or whatever. Like, what a great time to practice just love making without the pressure of it having to create a baby, right? Like it's really necessary, I think, to stay in that like kind of creative field. And like when the challenge of fertility overcomes the intent of bringing in a new soul, it's really difficult to be in that kind of vibrant space of life making, right? And easier said than done. I'm not trying to shame anyone here, like I've been there. Right? But like trying to find that place where we can keep things like fresh and joyful and whatnot. Like ritual helps with this, and there are natural cycles. Like this is one of the great gifts of working with the sun and the moon, for example, right? There are seasons of the year, there are seasons of the day, there are seasons of the month, and like learning to connect yourself with that energy and practicing with that energy, whether you want to go full Wicca priestess in the woods, or just simply be in your modern life and in tuned with these cycles. Like it can just help you kind of stay in the game in such a way that feels, I think, a little bit less pressure. I mean, look, it can go the other way too, right? It could just be another dang date of the month where you got to do something now. And you really, I think we want to avoid that. We want to try to like keep this fun and fresh, because that's what's going to, that's what life is made of.
Brett, I conceived my third kid, Paige, not around my ovulation time. So we could
the date? Because I have your chart up on a hidden screen right now.
But I might be able to figure out I might be able to go backwards based on her birth date, right? So I'm not sure. But I wonder if the moon thing is that. But part of this is this dance, and it's part of our summit, Love Yourself Fertile. Hopefully people listening to that are getting the information that we want there to be. The fertility space gets extremely reductionistic about the nutrients you're taking in, and is it enough this, and am I taking enough supplements, and am I doing this, and am I doing that? And what we want to do is kind of step things back a little bit and introduce you to different concepts of ways to love yourself. And that what Brett's offering is always like, and I've always learned from him, like, just go outside, like spend a little time, look up, like recognize you're part of something bigger, you're part of something much bigger, and have a little ritual around that. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, when Brett's living here and I'm doing my naturopathic medicine, which is more in the reductionistic space, it is like, is thyroid hormone optimized? What about vitamin D? Blah, 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 all the things. And he's talking about things for his clients. We would be sometimes dueling Zoomies and that's about rituals of self-care and what's going on in the moon phase and what's going on here. It's just brilliant to see different ways people can access medicine. And if one thing isn't working for you, if you've been more in the reductionistic space and trying to get every detail just perfect on your journey and you're not seeing results, might it be an invitation to step into something different and just connect to the moon cycle and see if that opens up a wave of healing or an opening in some way in the journey for you? Hey, B, I think you muted yourself.
Oh, I did. Yeah, sleep with the blinds open. Also, the curtains open. Right. So instead of going like full darkness, where again, like every night looks the same, if you can let the light of the moon in, and look, if you have windows in your room and they face north, it's not going to happen anyway, unless you're in the southern hemisphere. And I don't want to get all super nerdy here, okay? But like, if there's a place in your home where the light of the moon, especially the full moon, will kind of come in at nighttime, you want that to touch your body. Like you want it to touch your consciousness while you're sleeping also. Like this is the connection that we've lost. I've actually long, like for more than a decade now, wanted to work with someone to create like a moon clock that just hangs on your wall and it does the phases of the moon. And so like you have a little bit of ambient night, you know, when the moon is lit in the sky, just to help you have that kind of embodied connection to the changing light of the moon. I know we're like kind of at time, and I think there's some great questions here, Hillary. So you want to address some of them?
How did we get to time? Okay, so Brett, people want to know why you're calling yourself an earth astrologer instead of an astrologer, but
yeah, it's a cool question. So, well, first of all, like plants introduced me to planets, but also like in my work, like what I'm kind of most intent upon is helping astrologers take our craft out of the intellectual realms alone and to bring them into an embodied practice, to reconnect to natural time, like to get out of calendar and clock constructs. Like we need that to make it to the YouTube on time or whatever, but to like reclaim our connection to the cycles of light and shadow, and to also like, I'm very fond of helping astrologers know that like a chart's not just the map of a soul, which is very beautiful and important, but also it's a map of the sky, right? So I mean, many of you I'm sure are recent mothers. Like I like to look with mothers and fathers at the charts of babies, right? Because we can see some of the talents we want to encourage. We can see some of the challenges that are likely to come forward, right? Like astrology is the map of the soul. However, like when our baby's born, I'll be outside writing down which direction the wind came from. I'll be looking for which animal first shows itself, right? Like some of these things, like I really want to honor the most important planet first, and that is Earth, the planet that you chose.
there's questions about syncing and moon cycle syncing and syncing with the cycle as far as ovulation. And I think that can get a little tricky. And I just want to say, like, you're not doing it wrong. However, you're ovulating and bleeding, if it's not syncing in the way Brett was speaking about it, that's okay. And that was like what we were talking about. There's a bit of a difference in cycles. And it's more what we're trying to present is this aspect of like bringing in something a bit bigger and having sort of rituals of self-care based on moon cycles, honoring some quiet, honoring some celebration, and creativity is what Brett was saying, like really stepping into the creativity cycle, and that when you're bringing new life in. And I think you'll have heard that over at the Love Yourself Fertile Summit, like, what do you do that brings you joy, and try to do more of it, even though it's so hard on a fertility journey. But like, how can you be in your essence? Like, I know Anna, your partner, like she loves dancing. And when she's dancing and goes to dance class and gets excited about dance class, she was more in her essence than if she's talking to me about her. Does she have enough iron and thyroid hormone? Like that's like they're very reductionistic stuff that you just want to understand, put down, and then go be in your fullness as a woman.
Yeah. Do you mind if I address a few of the questions that I'm reading in here?
Yeah. Oh, great.
Because they're really brilliant questions. And again, like the last thing I would want to do here is add another level of stress, right? So there's a question of, wait, so I'm supposed to be ovulating at full moon? No, you should be ovulating when you're ovulating. Like that's all spirit too, right? Like, and I think like trying to force your cycle to a place like would be really tricky and perhaps dangerous anyway. But generally speaking, this theory is that we are most fertile at the time of our natal moon phase. So, like I'll just say, like right now, for example, is if a child is born today, the moon is currently in like the waxing half phase, and she's a little bit beyond. She's like the day after, and so that would say that that's a very fertile time for whoever's born today throughout the course of their life. And so this is just something like, get with an astrologer. We could do a short reading if you want to talk with me about this. I'll just show you when that is. I'll show you throughout the course of this year when it comes around every month, and we'll see. Like, and again, like if that's not where you're ovulating currently, then I think it's just another place where you can like try, or at least maybe with maybe some less pressure. That would be the general hope. So full moon time, I think generally speaking for the earth, like this is a very fertile time. This is like the night time, right? This is like goddess time. But we want to look at your cycle. And so we're going to have, there's this kind of rumor that there's more children born at full moon time than otherwise. I haven't personally seen that to be true. I've looked at thousands of birth charts, and I've seen the moon all over the place. I think we should probably pretty much see it distributed. We should see babies distributed throughout day and night, all the hours as well. That's changing now because of the prevalence of C-sections and scheduling around tea times, frankly. And it's a really strange thing. That's like a whole other story. That'd be a fun interview for you if you're interested in pursuing that, though, Hillary. There's a really great British astrologer called Wendy Stacy, who's doing a lot of like research into, wow, like the distribution of birth times is getting like completely inorganic as a result of this thing, because nobody's doing C-sections at 2 a.m., right?
I just don't think the doctors are playing that much golf anymore, and not to be
well, so I mean, it's not just tea times.
I'm kidding.
I'm just saying, like, it's pretty rare to have a C-section in the middle of the night.
Isn't
It's
it?
not at all rare to have a natural birth in the middle of the night, right? So like there's something changing there. But like, yeah, you're going to have your own personal moon phase. So like, I have like at my site, if you want to check it out, I have like a short session. It's a 33-minute session. We could just focus on that. Like I could just show you that and map it out and give you like a calendar for the month if you wanted to.
I just feel like it'd be such a beautiful opening for you women that have been working on a journey for a while, and just if it brings you a little of excitement to understand this piece and step into something a little bit more creative and add a little layer, and for, like I said, for everything on this Love Yourself Fertile Summit, some things are going to wash right over you and they're not going to make sense to you, and some things are going to stick and be like, this is the thing I want to do, so that's why I wanted to bring you Gemini Brett, because he breathes in a whole different wave of being and ray of sunlight. I love you. And we both get to go do our work in the world, but I'm so like proud of you, and I love you, and I can't wait to hug you and squeeze you, and I'll see you soon.
I receive and I reflect that.
This man is an incredible, if you've been wanting an astrologer or something, he's full heart. It's an amazing process working with them. And I think
I would just say one other thing. Like if we were doing an astrology session around fertility, I don't even start with your moon. I start with much more complex things that I'm not going to try to talk about here. And for those of you who follow the chart, it's looking at the 5th house and the dispositor of the 5th house and conditions there and transits to that being, and on and on and on we go. So yeah, just come over, like do a short session. We'll tune in. If you like it, we can go deeper sometime, but I can definitely in like 30 minutes kind of give you a little calendar to work with this year and in the years moving forward, and show you how to kind of organically connect and create your own. And
may everybody get their babies that they're for. Yeah. Much love. Love you, B.
Bye, y'all. Thanks. Nice to be on here. Bye-bye.
Bye.